Okay, let's start with number 9. It says simplify the following using exponent rules. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this recently. Did you know today was my birthday? You didn't? Well, you just found out. Anyway, let's do 9 together. Uh, so if you remember, the first thing you should do is make sure the exponents are visible, correct? So should we write this as 2 to the power of 1, right? And we're going to distribute the 3. Is that clear? So that becomes e to the power of x minus 3, which stays the same. 1 times 3 is 3, so that's 2 cubed. Now careful, what's negative 4x times 3? Okay, we're multiplying powers. So is that negative 12x? And then what's 2 cubed? So that's 8, the number can come in front. And then we have e to the power of x minus 3, e to the power of negative 12x. Remember, the bases are the same. So what should we do with the powers? The correct answer is add the powers. So we have 1x and then take away 12x. So that's negative 11x and then minus 3. So really on the side, we are adding the powers, because when you multiply monomials with the same base, you add powers. So that's your final answer. It looks weird, but that's okay. Okay, let's do B together. You can pause the video, attempt it yourselves. Now, the 5 is outside. Observe, the 5 is outside. It's not part of the parentheses. So the 5 stays 5. And then once again, just like the previous problem, what do we do with the powers? You should multiply them. When you raise to the power for a monomial, you multiply powers. So that's e6x, and that's ex. Now that's e6x over ex. So when you're dividing like this, monomials with the same base, e, what do you do with the powers? The correct answer is subtract. So it is 6x take away x, which is just 5x. And that's your final answer. Okay, let's try C. You can pause the video, attempt C yourselves. So as before, that's 5e3x. That's not part of the parentheses. And then you're raising to the power of 2. So that'll just multiply. So it becomes e to the power of negative 2x. A common error is kids say negative x times negative x, which is positive x squared. But that is not the right way to think about it, because you're really raising to the power of 2. You're not multiplying e negative x with itself, okay? And then final step, if you're multiplying monomials with the same base, what do you do with the powers? You should add them. So 3x take away 2x is simply ex. Okay, it will take 30 seconds to look over the 3 questions again, please, for the rules. Okay, let's do 10. 10 says if f of x is that and g of x equals that, find g of f of negative 1. So this is what is called evaluating a composite function. So what should I do first? So the correct answer is you evaluate the inside. We can totally do f of negative 1. So do that yourselves. Show the work, use parentheses. So 3 times negative 1 square minus 2 times negative 1 plus 1. Negative 1 square is 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2 plus 1. 3 times 1, 3 plus 2, 5 plus 1, 6. Are we done with the problem? No. It says find g of f of negative 1. Now again, if you observe, we just found f of negative 1 to be 6. So we basically need g of 6. Can we do that quickly? So we look at the g function. So is that just g of 6, which is 5 times 6 plus 2? Final answer, 30 plus 2, which is 32. So that's how A was done. Okay. Okay, now let's do B together. Okay, you can pause the video, attempt it yourselves. It says find f of g of x. So this is not a value, but a composite function. So basically, it's like f of g. So I'm going to replace f. In f, okay, in f, every x will get replaced with g. So it's almost as if you're doing 3g of x square minus 2 times g of x plus 1. That's a good way to think about it. So I'm replacing every x with g of x. Oh, wait a second. But we know what g of x is. So we can substitute and we get 3 times 5x plus 2 square minus 2 times 5x plus 2 parentheses plus 1. See if you can simplify this yourselves. So the 5x plus 2 whole square is 5x times 5x is 25x squared. 5 times 2 is 10, times 2 is 20. You write down the letter, which is x. 2 square, 2 times 2, which is 4. You can distribute, which gives you 75x squared. And then 3 times 20x is 60x. 3 times 4, which is 12. Minus 10x minus 4, distribute the negative 2, and then plus 1. Let's combine like terms. So we have 75x squared. And then 60x, take away 10x is 50x. 12, take away 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And that's your final answer. 75x squared plus 50x plus 9. Okay. You can pause the video, look over all the work we did. Okay. Let's try question number 11. You can pause the video, attempt it yourselves. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with this 3 here, the question really is saying negative 2 cos of 2 pi over 3, and you cube your result. Okay, that's what that means. So it can be written as cos cube in trigonometry. Okay, if you have not seen this before, that's okay. So do this with me. So first, we need cos of 2 pi over 3. We need to find that value. So what's 2 pi over 3? Now don't forget pi is 180. So pi over 3, 180 over 3 is 60. So pi over 3 is actually 60. Most of you should have memorized it. And 2 times 60 is 120. So that guy is 120 degrees. Which quadrant will 120 degrees be in? It's the second quadrant. Okay, this is 0, that's 180 degrees. Is 120 close to the axis or far away from 180? The correct answer is far away, and that reference angle is 60 degrees. Okay, or pi over 3. Now we're wrapping this up. Which in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, because that's a 30. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, what goes across from 60? The answer is radical 3. What goes next to on the base? So across from 30 is 1, but you're in the second quadrant, that's an x value, so it's negative 1. Watch your signs. The hypotenuse is 2. So it's a 1 radical 3, 2 triangle. Okay? See if you remember that. We're wrapping this up. So negative 2 drops down, can't vanish. What's the cos formula? The correct answer is x over r, okay, in terms of x, y, and r. So x over here is negative 1. The r is 2. We're not done. There's a cube there. Careful. So that's negative 1/2 cube. Okay, we're wrapping this up. What's negative 1 cube? That's negative 1. What's 2 cube? 8. So what's your absolute final answer? Simplify, cross cancel. Check if we get positive 2 eighths, which is 1/4. Okay. So what you learned, some of you learned in this example is if you have a cube like that, cos cube or sine square, it just means take the result and you square it. Okay. So what's your signs? Again, look over this problem one final time before we move on. Okay, let's go do 12, please. It says find the value of the following without a calculator. So these are just simple log expressions which we are determining without a calculator. So most of these are mental math if you understand how logs work. So focus on the base. So this question simply means 3 to the power of what power will give you 1/3. And we're trying to guess the power. That's what is really going on in logs. 3 to the power of what number will give you 1/3. Check if we got negative 1. Okay, because it's in the denominator. So 3 is in the denominator. Okay. For ln, in case you've forgotten, that's actually log base e. It's what is called natural log. Okay, let's do this together. Focus on the base. E to the power of what power will give you e cube? Repeat, e to the power of what number, that's my answer, will give you e cube. The answer is obviously 3. That's it. Okay, let's do C, please. In case you've forgotten, there's no base there. So the base is not mentioned rather, and it's understood to be 10. Okay, that's radical 10. Once again, focus on the base. 10 to the power of what power will give you radical 10. Don't forget what a radical really indicates. That's 10 to the power of 1/2, correct? Now it's easier. 10 to the power of what power will give you 10 to the power of 1/2. And just like part B, the answer is 1/2. Okay, try D yourselves. Don't forget, like part B, you have a base of E. So once again, focus on the base. E to the power of what power will give you 1 over E? And the answer is -1, because E to the power of -1 is actually 1 over E. 1 over E1, which is 1 over E. Okay, they're all mental math problems if you understand how logs and exponents work. Okay, let's do 13, please. This is 4 cosecant square 5 pi over 4. As we just learned moments ago, that's basically cosecant 5 pi over 4 whole square. Okay. In case you've forgotten, I'm doing some notes. This is pi over 4. That's 3 pi over 4. So keep in mind, pi over 4 is 45 degrees and has a 4 in it, so that's 45. This is 5 times 45, and that's 7 times 45. It's smart to memorize this, 1357. So basically odd multiples of pi over 4. So we need 5 pi over 4. So that's this guy, what is called 225 degrees. So we're going to drop the perpendicular onto the x-axis. So 5 pi over 4 is in the third quadrant. So it's 1357. So that's a 45 degree angle. Okay. So it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. See if you can write down the sides of that triangle. So it's actually 1, 1 radical 2 if you've memorized it. But careful. This is really -1 in the third quadrant, -1 in the third quadrant. Okay. We're wrapping this up. What's the cosecant formula? See if you remember that. Cosecant, if you remember, is R over Y. Okay, the 4 doesn't vanish. There's a 4 outside. So R is radical 2. It is the hypotenuse. Y is -1. I'm going to square it. Okay, let's wrap this up. What's radical 2 times radical 2? That's what radical 2 square is. It's just 2. -1 square is 1. Final answer, 8. And that's your final answer. So it wasn't too bad. So can you go over these notes one final time before we move on to the last question? Okay, do this yourselves. Okay, last question of the day in the video. It says solve that log equation. So I put in another one for practice. It's a good idea if the log is on the right side. Can you see the variable is on the right side? To rewrite it. So that's really log t minus 3 to the base 5 equals -2. So that's what's called a log equation. So if you're in log form, you should go to exponential form. Okay, see if you can do that yourselves. So you can cross out the log and push that 5 up. So it's actually t minus 3 equals 5 to the power of -2. What's 5 to the power of -2? If you remember your exponent rule, that's 1 over 5 square, which is 1 over 25. What should I just do last step? I should add the 3. So t equals 1 over 25 plus 3, and I can use a fraction trick. 25 times 3 is 75 plus 1, 76 over 25. Ta-da! And that finishes the video. By the way, I don't know if you know this, today is my birthday. It may have escaped you. If it did, that's a reminder for you. Okay, I want you to finish off the rest of the problems. Thank you.